from Judicial Watch's perspective, it's about time there's an indictment of a federal official for violating FOIA law. I got to hand it to the Justice Department. They're kind of doing finally what we've been asking them to do for some time, which is to seriously prosecute and investigate some of the lawfare and other obvious violations of law that occurred over the last decade or so, and including violations of law related to COVID. And there was an important important indictment this week of a former senior official, basically one of Anthony Fauci's former top deputies, because according to the lawsuit, and some of this had come out publicly, but now there's an indictment attached to it, this official, David Morens, had hidden records by using a private email account about COVID. And he was doing it on purpose. He knew the email account, or so he thought, wouldn't be covered by the Freedom of Information Act and wouldn't be seen by members of Congress. And he was just hiding material on COVID from the American people. And the indictment lists as the FOIA that started it all, Judicial Watch's FOIA. So a Judicial Watch FOIA request was thwarted in a criminal way, and the FOIA requests of others, as you'll see, by this government official and Lord knows who else. So it's an incredible indictment. It got a lot of news, but from Judicial Watch's perspective, it's about time there's an indictment of a federal official for violating FOIA law. Now, if they only had done the same thing against Hillary, who did the same exact thing by most measures, again, uncovered by Judicial Watch. But we'll take it where we can get it. Now, is this man innocent? Maybe. He's innocent until proven guilty, but the indictment's quite damning. David Morens of Chester, Maryland, he's 78, is charged with conspiracy against the United States, destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations, concealment, removal, or mutilation of records, and aiding and abetting. Morens served as a senior advisor to NIAID's Office of Director from 2006 to 2022. And who was that director? That's the National Institute for Allergic and Infectious Diseases. That was Anthony Fauci. As a senior advisor, Morens counseled senior NIAID official 1, Fauci, it's pretty clear it's Fauci, and other senior level staff on senior level policies, developed recommendations and solutions for issues impacting the National Institutes of Health, and wrote and edited manuscripts. Morens also provided guidance and expertise to senior staff members on epidemiological studies, I think I got the word right, and issues related to infectious diseases planning and management. Importantly, Morens gathered information from grantees and others in the scientific community to establish facts about the nature of COVID-19. This enabled Morens to understand NIH and NIAID's historic activities in coronavirus research, meaning the gain-of-function research that we're all concerned about, assisted in formulating policy and procedures, and briefing senior NIAID official 1, again, Fauci, so he could relay information to the President of the United States, Congress, and public. According to the indictment, Morens, co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator 2 and others conspired during the COVID-19 pandemic to defraud and commit several offenses against the United States after NIH terminated co-conspirator 1's grant. So what they're talking about there is Peter Daszak and EcoHealth Alliance that was funded by the Wuhan lab, by the Fauci agency, to engage in this coronavirus research at the Wuhan lab. So he talks about, according to emails, that a FOIA lady told him how to keep emails away from FOIA, and he was encouraging people to keep on using his Gmail account to avoid disclosure under FOIA, and he expressed repeatedly, according to the indictment, concerns about his communications being captured and subject to FOIA. And there are other crimes too, including illegal gratuities, which seem to be kind of, you got a bottle of wine or something like that, you know. I guess it may technically be a crime, but it's more concerning that he was hiding these records in a conspiratorial way. And remember, they knocked the grant out, and he was hiding these records in order to get the grant related to gain of function reinstituted. By the way, both the Trump administration and the Biden administration took steps to make sure this funding stopped. So this is a nonpartisan issue. Gain of function doesn't have much support outside some in the scientific community. But here's where Judicial Watch comes in. Let me bring up the indictment. Here's the indictment. Talk about the Federal Records Act, which governs the maintenance of federal records by federal agencies. Freedom of Information Act. You see the indictment covers the Freedom of Information Act. It describes what the rules are. So here's page 7 of the indictment. Starts talking about multiple FOIA requests sought information and communications concerning Morens Company 1 and co-conspirator 1. In the period between April 2020 and December 2022, NIAID, Fauci's agency, received hundreds of FOIA requests related to COVID. Of these requests, many sought access to communications involving Morens Company 1, EcoHealth, and DASA, co-conspirator 1, including but not limited to the following. Here it is. Started A, request 54052, filed by Judicial Watch on April 22nd, 2020. Science Magazine filed one a week later. An individual filed it, similar requests, I guess a request in 2021, and then there's some other requests by Heritage and others in 2022. And so according to this document, this indictment, he talks about using his Gmail account to gather information to share and help Fauci. But he also uses but he does it in a way to avoid disclosure about what he's doing, and that's why he was indicted. And I'll give you a good example here. So look at this. On or about April 25th, 2020, after learning about the cancellation of the bat coronavirus grant, Morens forwarded his communication with co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator 2 from his NIH email account to his Gmail account. Morens then emailed co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator 2 stating, "This is sent from my Gmail account. Please send all replies here to Gmail. These are things I can't say except Fauci is aware, and I have learned that there are ongoing efforts within NIH to steer this through with minimal damage to you, co-conspirator 1, and colleagues, and to NIH and NIAID." So they were trying to quote, this gentleman is talking about Morens, trying to steer issues through to protect Fauci, the agency, and their partner from blowback on the funding of gain-of-function research, which many believe, quite credibly so, led to the creation of the COVID-19 virus. So here you go. On or about April 28, 2020, co-conspirator 1, in an email titled "More FOIAs are on their way," this time to NIAID, including emails to us, wrote to Morens to alert him about a group, quote, targeting Fauci and looking for email to us and others regarding Wuhan. Morens responded by thanking co-conspirator 1 for the heads up, stating, "We all dread these FOIAs. They take up so much time." On or about, this is just a few days later, Morens emailed members of a prominent medical organization to enlist them in speaking out on behalf of essentially EcoHealth Alliance and DASIC, who was running this gain-of-function program with the Wuhan Institute. "Colleagues, I need to keep this correspondence off of U.S. government emails for obvious reasons, and I'm sending from Gmail. I am under multiple FOIAs already." He's trying to avoid the law. to help his buddy that could make or break Fauci because of their involvement in gain-of-function research. And remember, if you were at this time talking about gain-of-function research, like Judicial Watch, or just asking questions, you were subject to being censored because of these people. So it goes on and on along these lines. But it started with this Judicial Watch FOIA. And we sued for these records in a year later in 2020. And this is the FOIA request that they were thwarting. Here it is. All internal NIAID communications regarding the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China. All agreements, contracts, and related documents between Wuhan and the NIAID. And all the records about the money, including $3.7 million in grants. And it turned out it was much more than that. And so as a result of this FOIA lawsuit, we uncovered disclosure after disclosure. We got the key records about how much they were giving initially, or some of the information. All of this confirmed for the first time by Judicial Watch. That's one case. That was in a little bit later that year. We got the records. And it included an email by Morens. Hi guys, do any of you have any inside info on this new coronavirus that isn't yet in the public domain? Or any thoughts? I mean, those are the sorts of emails we wanted, but they were trying to hide them from us. And if they were on Gmail, we would never have seen it. And Morens knew that seemingly. There was another big deal. Look what else we found. Oh, this was a classic. New documents show Wuhan lab asked NIH official for information on disinfectants. 9 Fauci agency grants for the coronavirus research. So the Wuhan official, early on in their relationship, sent an email to folks at NIAID, including, let's see what the it was to a virologist, Jens Kuhn, and it was in 2016. So this was just near the beginning of the Wuhan partnership with your government. I'm writing you to ask for your help. Our laboratory is under operation without pathogens, and we are now looking for the disinfectants for decontamination of airtight suits and surface decontamination, indoor decontamination. We've tried several ones to determine their antiviral efficacy and corrosion to pipeline and wastewater treatment equipment. Unfortunately, we haven't found a good candidate. I hope you can give us some help. What kind of disinfectants for decontamination of airtight protective clothes? For air decontamination? And for decontaminating the laboratory. This email was then forwarded after COVID erupted to Fauci. So they didn't know how to keep their lab safe in Wuhan, and Fauci was informed of it, at least we know for sure, in 2020 after COVID erupted. So again, document, and let's see what else we found here. Oh yeah, these documents show that another batch of documents from this lawsuit showed that essentially Bill Gates's foundation was working hand in glove with the Chinese on advancing Chinese interests. I'll provide a link below. So I'm sorry for going over all this important material. I guess I shouldn't apologize because it's important you know about it. It's unlikely you do. But this was the mother of all lawsuits related to COVID and our government's involvement potentially in funding its creation. And we have confirmation that Judicial Watch's lawsuit was criminally thwarted by Fauci's top advisor. Now, the question that arises from this indictment is, what did Fauci know, when did he know it, and why is he being prosecuted? Well, of course, he was given this ridiculous pardon by Biden, basically a blanket pardon, no crime specified, which makes it invalid. And of course, you run into the issue of the auto pen nature of the pardon. And so I think it's invalid, and should be ignored. So I'm hoping they do. And I'm hoping it's not restricting any prosecution of Fauci, and that if a prosecution is warranted, one is pursued. But in the meantime, we're going to want to know how this lawsuit, and potentially many others, because this wasn't the only lawsuit, but our request was at the center of this indictment. Our lawsuit, which was at the center of virtually everything you know about COVID and gain of function, was thwarted by criminal activity, according to the Justice Department of these United States of America. So big deal, huh? A big deal. And so we'll be pursuing this. We have other litigation ongoing about Morens and what he was up to. And I'll have more reports to you on the future. We've just, I don't have time to talk about all the lawsuits we got going on or planned or have filed, but I'll get to that in future weekly updates. But an important development, a Judicial Watch FOIA, was one of the reasons that the Fauci gang took illegal steps to hire records from the American people, Congress, and maybe even the FBI, based on what looks like to be the investigation that was taking place at the time. So I hope more is coming, that's for sure. And you can be sure separately Judicial Watch will continue its own investigation. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.